Okay, I know that Keith Olbermann got bounced for a few days over at MSNBC for contributing to a political campaign. Fortunately, I don't work for anybody. I own this show. But nonetheless, in the interest of disclosure, there are a few politicians that I've sent money to over the years. Alan Grayson is one of them. And he lost the last election down in Florida, and he can tell us about that if he'd like. But he's going to be running again. Alan Grayson, GraysonForCongress.com or CongressmanWithGuts.com. Alan Grayson, welcome back to our program.
Thanks a lot. And you're not alone. Since 9 o'clock last night, 9 p.m., over 1,000 people have made contributions at CongressmanWithGuts.com.
That's marvelous.
It's really encouraging. Even before I started to run again, lots of people, thousands of people were making contributions. And it was kind of odd, I'll tell you honestly, that people had that much faith in me that they wanted to contribute even though I was a candidate for nothing. We actually outraised the gentleman who won in 2010 in the first quarter. We raised $40,000 without my asking anyone for a penny. He raised $30,000 by begging every lobbyist and PAC in town. So that was very encouraging, I must say.
Yeah, that is remarkable. How did you lose last time, if you don't mind my asking? Just a really blunt question.
Well, it's what I said in What You Wear. The Democrats didn't vote. The Democratic turnout, not just in my district, but all around Florida, was in the low 40s. Mm-hmm. The Republican turnout was in the high 60s.
Wow.
So around two-thirds of all the Republicans voted, and fewer than half of all the Democrats voted. I got almost all the Democratic votes, as you would expect. And I got a lot of the independent votes, too. But if every Democrat and every Republican and every independent had voted for me, then I still would have come up short because there were so few Democratic votes. And it wasn't just in my district. It was all around the country.
Right.
Basically, the Democratic voter went on strike in 2010, and we ended up with the worst Democratic House losses in 108 years.
So now it's time to bring the Democrats back to the polling place. And this is... on the one hand, I would think going to be fairly easy for a guy like you who's willing to speak out and assert himself. On the other hand, there are many who are speculating that the president's apparent vacillation, apparent willingness to compromise, it may be that Lawrence O'Donnell is right, and this is move 3 in a seven-move chess game, three-dimensional chess game, where he's going to just totally snooker the Republicans. We'll see, but that perception, I think, may be hurting Democratic turnout.
Well, I speak to members of the House, current members of the House, all the time. And this is telephone calls, lunches. They visit the district. I mean, for God's sake, I represent Disney World, so a lot of people visit the district.
Sure.
And I'll tell you that if the president has snookered the Republicans, he's also snookered the Democrats, because what I'm hearing from members privately is that they have the sense that he really is willing to give in on fundamentals like Social Security and Medicare. Yeah. And they're not sure where that leaves the party. I mean, if the party won't defend Social Security and won't defend Medicare, then what does the party stand for?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that, although Nancy Pelosi has stood up and said to the president, sorry, you're not going to get votes for that. President Obama, by the way, just announced that Social Security checks will not be going out on August 3rd. He's doubling down on the pressure on the Republicans. Do you think that this could make the thin bond between Eric Cantor and John Boehner explode?
Well, I don't understand why people are even looking in that direction. Fox News reported yesterday that between 80 and 100 Republicans will vote against any deal. I mean, you could combine an increase in the debt limit with a cure for cancer,
right,
and they're going to vote against it anyway. And
right.
This is Fox News reporting, a very reliable source when it comes to what's on Republicans' minds.
Right, but 100 no votes in the House is not enough to kill something. I mean, there's 435 members there.
Well, that's true, but almost 200 of them are Democrats. So what that tells you, just from simple arithmetic, is that if you're actually looking to pass something, you shouldn't be begging the Republicans for terms of surrender. What you should be doing is putting together a sort of a sane caucus, people who don't want to see the destruction of America, and include those few Republicans who would actually be willing to belong to such a caucus,
right,
along with the majority of Democrats. You know, Boehner is a general with no troops. He can't even get more than half of his caucus to vote the way that he wants them to, and yet we're listening to what Boehner wants. Why don't we listen more to those Democrats and those Republicans who are willing to save the country from a default?
Right, and what the American people want. I mean, the vast majority of the American people do not want Social Security or Medicaid touched, or Medicare. For if anything, they want them strengthened. The vast majority of people in the United States are saying enough of the wars already, and let the Bush tax cuts expire. And when you look at the charts and graphs on what's actually driving the deficit right now, if we didn't have the Bush tax cuts, and if we didn't have the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and if we didn't have a recession going, which we might not have without those two things, then you got no deficit.
Well, you're absolutely right. You're completely right. That's just simple arithmetic again. But think about this. We have a country where we have 22 million people who can't find full-time work. That's what the latest numbers are from the Department of Labor. I looked it up myself.
Right. Which means that the real country. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We have 50 million people in this country who can't see a doctor when they're sick. We have something on the order of 30 million families who owe more on their mortgages than the value of the property itself. They owe more than they own. They're underwater, and they feel like they're drowning. And yet we're talking about what the budget ought to be in the year 2021.
Right.
The Republicans have completely taken over the dialogue in this country. We need to systematically solve our problems, not do this ideological fan dance that the Republicans seem to want us all to engage in with them. And you're right about the numbers. If you actually felt that the overriding imperative with that much unemployment, that many sick people in this country who can't see a doctor, that many people losing their homes, if you really felt that the thing you really needed to do was to save $2 trillion over the next 10 years, the answer is obvious. You simply end the wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Libya. That alone would save, last year alone, $157 billion. And over the course of 10 years, much more than $2 trillion. In other words, it's possible that the answers to all of our problems can be summed up in one word, and that word is peace.
Yeah. And then, letting the Bush tax cuts expire, because they took a whack out of this country. When George Bush came into office, we had a surplus.
Right, and think about what we could be doing with that $90 billion a year last year. And again, that's a number that increases dramatically over time. If you had that $90 billion and you could spend it on building schools, building bridges, building roads, putting people back to work, then you'd be putting money into the hands of the middle class in America, and the economy would revive.
Alan Grayson, congressmanwithguts.com. Get over there. Support his efforts. We would love to see you back in the House of Representatives, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.